All right, we'll call this meeting to order, a committee of the whole meeting. And we have a quorum because everyone is present. Mr. Smith is by phone, and who else do we have on the phone with us?
Miss Nowlin, sir.
All right, we have Lisa Nowlin. Is that all?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll get started here, and I do not have an agenda in front of me, so I guess we'll just go straight into the committee meeting. Does someone, oh, it's on the screen. I'm blind this morning, thank you. All right, we have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
All right, Mr. Springer's made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cordero has seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right,
Aye.
unanimous. All right, strategic planning. And this first item is 3.1, comprehensive land use study. Mr. Taylor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. This month, we do have 3 information items coming before the board. All of these 3 items are still in the works and will be completed by next Tuesday for uploading into the Board of Education meeting agenda. Back several months ago, recognizing that our county continues to grow exponentially, we thought it was in the best interest of us and the strategic planning for the future of Pender County to conduct an update to the comprehensive land use study. One has not been conducted in 8 years. This will give us our updated 10-year enrollment projections for our students' enrollments across the district by attendance zone. Additionally, it will provide us with a student gain ratio that we can use to calculate projected students for every new neighborhood that is constructed or developed here in Pender County. Mr. Mike Miller, the owner of New Barracks, will be here to provide that presentation for us. Any specific questions related to this that you would like for me to forward to Mr. Miller?
Yes, sir. If I can, Mr. Chair, I would like to find out where he's pulling his information from.
Okay, I can answer that now if you would
Okay, yeah,
like,
go
but
ahead.
he will probably include that in his presentation.
Okay.
He's met with every municipality and the Pender County Planning Department to get updated historical data and future development proposals that are on the books.
So what I would say, Mr. Taylor, is I guess more so I would be inclined to say that is this data coming from the census, or is he just comparing it just to historical data?
Some of that data will be included in the census because the planning department uses that data as well. But his real calculations are coming from what he's seeing right now in every municipality, including Topsail, Burgaw, Surf City, and then Pender County as a whole.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Yes,
I
sir.
don't have anything
It
else.
will not be reliant on the data that was self-reported, which is what I think you're referring to.
Yes, sir.
The census data is a lot of self-reporting. Yes, sir. This is from the professionals in the entities that make up our school system.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Other question? All right. The second item, the next 2 items actually were born out of last week's board meeting. Mr. Springer asked for an assessment across the district regarding the equipment needs in our cafeteria kitchens in order to help improve the efficiency of the Airmark operations as a whole. We have collected some of that, but I'm still refining that so that we can provide a prioritized list of needs to the Board of Education in hopes of being able to obtain that equipment or the equipment upgrades using our enterprise fund.
Mr. Taylor, how many schools have you assessed thus far?
We have a list of equipment needs or wants. We need to meet with Airmark staff and our child nutrition staff to verify the needs and wants that have been sent from those schools.
Okay,
But we've collected equipment requests, is what I should say, from each of those schools. We will now validate those
okay.
and prioritize them. Any other questions? Okay, and the last item, I think Mr. Smith proposed this item regarding what the basically a review of the cafeteria renovation for Burgall Middle School. In the original bond package, there was an allocation of $4.272 million to basically completely renovate, or it looked like new construction based on, and y'all were here when the bond was proposed early on. I'm thinking it was leveling the current cafeteria and building a new 10,000 square foot structure. Is that correct? That's what I can find in some of the emails and things. I wasn't included in the original bond planning before it became to fruition.
In all honesty, to my best recollection, the word I always heard was renovate.
Okay.
I never heard. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
No, I apologize. Being here on phone, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ms. Burns, but I was just going to concur with you is that there was never about total demolition and rebuild. It was just to renovate. That's why at the last meeting I had asked for more detail on this, because nothing was given to us in real true detail, I don't believe. And I think Ms. Burns and Mr. Hall would both agree with that.
Okay. So I will reach out to the persons who helped create the bond proposal for us to find out what the criteria they were using to develop that fund. But we have done some preliminary evaluation ourselves regarding potential reconstruction of the kitchen, knowing that the facility seating area is still in good health. Obviously, we want to do some internal renovations, but the structure in and of itself doesn't warrant complete destruction or raising and then rebuilding. So I'll have more information regarding that at the next, at the meeting as well. Are there any questions or further direction for that? Mr. Smith, did I capture what I think you asked?
That is what I asked, but also concerning Airmark, I'd like to amend a request. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, and if not, Mr. Chairman, please correct me. But in my request also about Airmark, about food satisfaction survey, I had requested not for them to conduct that survey and bring it back to us. I was in error in saying that. What I should have said is I'd like for our staff to somehow craft that survey so that way we have control of the survey itself going out. And instead of Airmark doing their own survey, it'd be almost as a restaurant doing their own, sanitation grading instead of having an outside source doing it. So I don't know when an appropriate time, if the rest of the board is comfortable Airmark doing their own, survey, then that's fine. I would withdraw that. But if not, then I would just like our staff, Mr. Lawson or whoever's in charge of that could help. But I would just lean on my fellow board members for your input on that.
Can I ask for a point of clarification?
Sure.
You can.
I think the request was for that survey to be conducted in April and presented in May. Is that correct so far?
It is. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure the main thing is who's actually
Yes, sir.
conducting the survey is what I wanted to make
Yes, sir.
sure, instead of if I spoke incorrectly and asked for Airmark to do it, my intentions was for our team to actually send out the email survey ourselves instead of Airmark having to deal with that responsibility.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
sir.
as a point of order, if we want to continue the conversation about Airmark's survey, I see no issue with adding an item to the agenda, but I think that would be the next move if we want to continue beyond that, because I don't think it's connected to the cafeteria remodel specifically.
I agree with our legal, but it's just since the Airmark was being brought up and asked anything else, that's the only reason why I brought up is for that comment is the only reason why I brought that up. So, thank you.
Mr. Smith, this is Mr. Cordero. Mr. Springer and I had the same exact conversation, so there's no disagreement from us on that, right, Mr. Springer?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Mr. McPherson, would someone need to make a
I think if that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the board's given its direction to staff that we want it to be a staff thing, so they're not grading themselves. If you have any questions, otherwise,
All right. Good. All right, thank y'all very much. Hope you have a great day.
All right, Mike, I think that finishes all of your stuff, so. Ms. Nowlin, are you on the phone?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
All right, go ahead.
Good morning, board. Presented to you is the fuel and electric for the month of April. Do we have any questions or concerns?
I'll ask you the same question. This is Mr. Cordero that I believe I asked last time, which is, is it possible to have a comparison between the time where we had synergistic and today as a comparison for electricity?
Yes, sir. Staff is currently working on that. We are like 2 months behind on the billing and the kilowatt cycles in the transition between the two companies. So we should be able to start working on that in the following month.
Have we paid January's electricity bill?
We have.
So,
But that data has to be entered into, and Mr. Taylor can add further into that, into the system. We have 200 plus different accounts with electric, so that has to be entered into the system so that we can use that as analysis. If you noticed on the report that the kilowatts per hour are behind.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. That is correct, ladies and gentlemen, because we're utilizing, because of 200 plus accounts as part of it. Hand data entry on all that would obviously take a significant amount of time. So we're utilizing the ECAP energy calculating provider that we can then run those reports on a monthly basis, which would extrapolate Duke Energy, Fort County, Jones Onslow, as well as our gas meters and things of that nature. So we're in the process. We're getting really close to pushing the button on that. I hate to give you a timeline, but I really, really think we're getting close. We have to send a certified signed PDF of every single account because we're transitioning from one platform to another. And they have to validate that we're giving them the correct information before they will stand behind it.
My feedback that I was trying to share, I think, was, we've got to submit a budget to. When did you intend, Dr. Breedlove, on submitting your budget to the county commissioners?
It will be in May.
In May. So we've got, and when in May was it going to be?
I haven't received an
Like
official date for
Okay.
submitting yet.
Well, since we're at the end of March, let's say it's less than 2 months. So in less than 2 months, we're going to need to submit a budget, and I would think that this
Correct.
is a very key item. And so my feedback was, although it's useful at the end of the day to analyze consumption of energy,
Yes, sir.
it's very necessary right now for the budget to analyze the consumption of dollars and cents. And if we already know the amount that we
Sure.
paid in January or February, for example, maybe we can use those financial data to prepare our budget, and then
Yes, sir.
after the fact, follow up with the consumption. Does that make sense?
That is, yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay.
I think I was under the wrong impression of what you were wanting. I thought you were wanting the
Yeah, the consumption data I'm not so much
analysis,
concerned with,
but
just
you want the
because
financial
to prepare the
impact
budget.
over time. Yes, sir, absolutely. And I think that would be relatively easy by Pender to capture that. Is that correct, Ms. Nowlin?
And Mr. Cordero, I always do that analysis year to year over like a 3 to 5 year period, create an average and then look at increase. So that is not specific to synergistics, but, just for budgetary purposes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's what I was asking. What I was trying to get at. I think the point was, if we look at January this year versus January last year, and there's no increase or not a material increase in the electricity costs, then we can assume that we'll have a savings. Does that make sense? As far as, we got rid of synergistic, charging us $20,000 a month or whatever it was.
Right, and I understand what you're saying, but I think that to the point that we're trying to make sure that we also, if we're looking at synergistics, look at the total picture and not just because a lot of things can change between year to year, but the price per kilowatt and different items. So, we were trying to give you the whole picture, and that's why I think maybe I misunderstood that. That's why we were waiting on the data so that we can compare kilowatts on top of the financial data.
But you're not preparing your budget based off consumption, or you're basing it based off of how much you're projecting to spend on electricity or other types of energy, right?
Well, correct. For budgeting purposes, we're looking at strictly data on what the average price that we spent on on electricity over several years, and what we project an increase to be.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so the next,
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
were there any other questions, Mr. Paul?
Well, actually, I did have one question. This is Beth Burns. Mr. Taylor, have we put any other resources into that void left by Synergistics? Did you hire anybody to do anything, or have we put anything in place?
We have not hired a new person at this time. Our HVAC staff are working on the scheduling.
Okay.
We are in the process of creating the job description so that we can post for that position, or a position that will oversee that specific area.
Okay, thank you.
That was a good question. I said that was a good question. I forgot about that kid.
All right, attorney fees.
Okay, the next thing on our list is attorney fees. Anybody have any questions or concerns about the attorney fees?
No? Do budget amendments then.
Okay, so you can see the budget amendments in the packet. There are state with the additional revenue and some just changes to amend the budget. We have local budget amendment, which is just changing money between purpose codes. Same thing with the capital outlay budget. Special revenue, you will see some increases in grant revenue that has come in. Any question or concern about any of those budget amendments?
Anyone have any questions? None here.
Okay. The next item is our executive summary financial board report. You will see on that board report, again, we have the two items of note that are federal funds that are still in the negative. Those are still awaiting, and you can also note that it's only been 2 weeks since our last reporting. We're waiting on DPI to approve a budget amendment for those items.
Okay.
Looks like we're in pretty good shape. Still noting some of the concerns in EC, but we have a plan for that again to address those items. Any questions or concerns regarding the summary report?
Anyone have any questions? Nope. Nope, go ahead.
Okay, I think that concludes my financial report.
Okay. Lisa, I think that's all we have for you at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, section 5.
Good morning, Board. How are you this morning? So I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on science, as you're going to see in the next steps, some additions into curriculum. We'll be making some purchases through ESSER. So I'm just going to give you a little update on where we are. And it starts with the changes at the state level in the science standards and the expectations for what teaching and learning looks like in science. And the bottom, discovering answers through questions, is what scientists do. They don't do it through looking at books, right? It's a different process. They're really trying to change over the science standards away from the rote memorization of science facts into more of learning by doing. And so they've taken the ideas from NGSS, which is the next gen science standards at the federal level, right, the United States level, and they pick and chose some things out of these areas that really pertain to North Carolina. The science and engineering practices and the disciplinary core ideas, really digging into the science and engineering practices, which is what we want students to do in science, how we want them to learn in science. So the standards are still content-based, but the science and engineering practices are how they should be teaching science in a science classroom. So you'll see these are the disciplinary core ideas that they went with. So all of the standards are based into basic 3 areas: the physical science, life science, and earth and space. And the engineering, technology, and applications of technology are built into physical sciences, life sciences, and earth and space. So you'll see K-8 divided into 3 basic content areas, and then technology is embedded into those areas throughout the school year. These are the science and engineering practices. And at the beginning of each of the standards, the science and engineering practices are the basis of what good science teaching looks like. We want them to ask questions. We want teachers and we want students to ask questions, develop and use models. We want them to plan and carry out investigations, analyze and interpret data, use mathematics and computational thinking, construct explanations and design solutions, engage in argument from evidence, and obtain, evaluate, and communicate information. So the standards changed a little bit by adding these statements to the beginning of each of the content standards, identifying out exactly what we want them to do, right? Developing and using models is different than just developing a model of a cell. It is expanding on why are we doing this and what's the purpose behind it, but then also, are there other things that you can learn other than just identifying the parts of a cell? So they've really gone into digging into the students actually learning from what they're doing in a science class. You'll see a lot of crossover with mathematics here as well, using the mathematical practices and analyzing and interpreting data using mathematics and computational thinking. So you'll see a lot of crossover between math and science. In addition to that, the crossover with literacy. So it really does embed a lot in science between literacy and mathematics and makes that connection between all those courses. So we started last year in the summer of 2023. The new standards were released in July from DPI. We developed our curriculum teams early on in the summer because we knew that this was coming, and we started looking at our curriculum and using those standards, designing our own curriculum, our own pacing guides and curriculum resources to determine what we needed to purchase. We began working on the curriculum and looking at different resources, and we also began professional learning for our science committee staff members. And we've been doing that across the county in our schools for all of the Southeast region schools. So it's been really beneficial for everyone to kind of dig into these practices and dig into these standards. We're finishing up the curriculum piece, right, the writing, and we are now looking at finalizing and adopting a resource to go along with the curriculum documents. Continuing professional learning, we have one more session in June to wrap up what we have started. And then we will start in Pender County with all of our teachers over the summer and next year. The science standards, according to the state, the new ones are required to be implemented in the fall of 2024. So we're ahead of the game a little bit compared to some of our neighbors. But we're in a really good place right now with the changes that are occurring. This is a big change across the state for what science teaching looks like. Our process, since we began in the summer, we began discussions with teachers, coaches, and really started looking at what we currently have in curriculum guides. What could we use that has been working? What do we need to change based on the new standards? In February and March, we started looking at the initial review of all of the materials. We had about 8 different companies that we were looking at. And in actuality, with the new NGSS standards and with the North Carolina standards, there's only 2 to 3 companies that actually align to North Carolina. So it really does take down and narrow down what we're looking for in something that we need. March 21st, we met with teachers, and we really looked over all of the materials. By now, we've done the curriculum writing piece, and we're really looking to find the resource that matches what we need. And we also started our community and parent feedback. So we are looping in. We have 4 sessions coming up where we are asking for parents' feedback. These are the resources we're looking at, and those kind of things. So we're really looking at what is good for us in Pender County, what matches the North Carolina standards, and then also getting the feedback from all of our stakeholders so we can then, at the April 9th board meeting, have a recommendation for a resource. So this has been an ongoing event since the summer of 2023. We'll be culminating in April and then finishing out the school year as well. Some things that we considered when we looked at materials, we considered budget, assessment data, right? If we're going to have a new curriculum, how are we going to assess what those standards are? Standards alignment, the usability, making sure that whatever we purchase is usable across all grade levels, across all schools as well. And then also looking at customer support and making sure whatever resource or company we go with, that there's a really good support for our customers. So we looked at all those things in a rubric. And stakeholder input, we got the curriculum committee involved, admin, teachers, coaches, the district staff, parents. There are viewing days for them to look over the curriculum, look over the resources from March 21st to April 3rd. We do have things available online as well as in person, so if they can't make it to the in-person sessions, they can see the stuff online. And the viewing days were sent in emails to parents as well as it is now posted on the website. So we've been able to get that communication out relatively quickly. There's an online form for feedback that also has demo accounts that parents can look at, those demo accounts, and actually preview what the curriculum, what the resource looks like. Some additional work we've been doing side-by-side in science, or side-by-side with science. If you remember last year, K-8 math and reading were adopted across the board. This year, we've been working on Math 1, 9-12 ELA, and 6-12 social studies. The social studies standards changed a couple years ago. They did add in the Holocaust standards this past year. So we've been looking at some resources there as well so we can make sure that we are well-rounded in our core 4 across the board in K-12. And we use the same process for science that we used in those other areas as well, making sure that we get parent input, teacher input, and all of that. So our next steps are to continue gathering the feedback. Parent meetings are scheduled. Make the selection of the resource for science, social studies, ELA, and math. You'll see on the action agenda for April 9th, we'll be bringing those orders to you. We have budgeted this out through ESSERS to ensure that we have the money and the resources available to be able to provide those resources K-12. We're going to begin professional development in the summer with the new resource. We're looking at scheduling parent nights to get parents in to see the resources and give them some things that they can do at home as well. We'll be rolling out the new standards in science specifically for K-12 in the fall, and you can expect to see professional development through all of next school year, really digging into the how-to with the new standards. Any questions? On science? Science?
The, Dr. Sawyer,
Yes.
the 7 steps you showed a minute ago and a couple slides back. That one right there?
Yes.
You said it changed or transitioned is what you said, from last year. What steps were added or deleted?
So all of these were added. These are the science and engineering practices, and these practices are best teaching practices in science. So what they did when they changed the standards, they didn't change they changed some of the content, moved it from grade to grade, but they added, instead of it saying, explain the parts of a cell, it says, develop and use models to determine something about the cell. So it's really digging into a deeper look at the content specifically using these practices. So these practices are aligned to the content.
And those are only practices that's going to be taught or understood in the curriculum?
These are the way that we will be teaching the standards. So when we talk about the parts of a cell, we will be using these as our instructional practices. We're going to be asking questions, designing and carrying out investigations, and doing that in order to understand the content specifically.
Okay.
So the content is still there. This is the how-to.
Is the why and the when on there too?
What do you mean the why and the when?
You said the how. I didn't know if it was going the.
This is the how-to teach.
Okay.
The why is because the standards changed and they've gone to a more inclusive way of teaching, and they've adopted NGSS, which is really explanatory, really digging into instead of PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint, right?
And they also talked about the assessments aligned to those engineering practices as well.
Yes.
Instead of just rote memorization on science content, it would be more application-based, critical thinking skills based on the information presented and how we teach science now.
Yeah, the grade 5 and grade 8 science assessment is changing next year. There's sample items on the assessment this year for students to see, and they're really based on application. So it's giving the student, a paragraph to read, giving them a graph or a table to analyze, and then asking them some questions about that. So it's really digging into application. Any other questions?
I will just give a shout out to Dr. Sawyer, our directors in ISD, for the work that they have done in the Southeast. Kathy Spencer, who heads up our region and our leadership, every so often is contacting Dr. Sawyer to ask her to present to the Southeast, to teachers, to other school system leaders. And so when Dr. Sawyer said that we are ahead, that is known throughout the Southeast, and I just want to say thank you for your work on this and our team in getting out front and being leaders in the Southeast. So thank you.
So I have 2 more things. The second thing I have on the agenda is a grant purchase for a Paxton Patterson College and Career Readiness Lab. This will be through CTE funding. The amount is for $50,000. The Paxton Patterson College and Career Readiness Lab is specifically for West Pender Middle School. And the investment basically aligns with our commitment to enhancing CTE opportunities for our middle school students and preparing them for the workforce. Any questions about that one?
Dr. Sawyer, is this
Yes, sir.
also going to include, I know you said West Pender, but is Burgall Middle been thought about for this E-Labs? Dr. Breelove, Mr. Allen and I spoke about this, that's why I'm asking.
I'm going to have to ask Dominique what the plan is for building out these Paxton Patterson labs. I know he was looking at trying to get a lab in each of the buildings. This grant was very specific to West Pender.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Springer, what you're referring to is the esports lab that Pender High School is getting, also bringing that to middle school and Burgall Middle. But right now, we are, our first phase is to complete the Pender High esports lab and then move down to middle school.
And that's the second thing on there for you to look at is the CTE purchase of the computer lab equipment for the esports team at Pender High School.
Is there a deadline we have to get this purchased by for the grant?
Well, for the grant purposes, we have to get the purchases in by a certain date in order to get the materials by the end of the budget year. So,
And would
that-
you say, I asked that because you said it specifically for West Pender, right? And I'm
the
not opposed to
Paxton
that.
Patterson lab, yes.
Okay.
I can ask Dominique what the plan is for the Paxton Patterson labs and see where we're at on that. And then I'll send the board an email and let you guys know what the update is on that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be more than willing to look at that grant if you could send that too.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
Good morning, board members. There are 4 second read policies that are on there. I feel like we've read these things about 5 times, but it'll be for second read at the next board meeting in April. There may be another iteration of 4353 coming up. That'll be shared with you prior to the board meeting. We're also starting to look through the following policies, 4340 and 4351, for possible revisions there. Are there any questions regarding the current second reads that are on there? Okay, very good. I just have one more thing to share, and that's the AP Academy. Just to update you a little bit on the AP Academy that we've been working through this year. There we go. Just a brief overview. We're trying to focus a lot on growing your own from within. If you notice, that you guys have been a part of these promotions, but we've moved a lot of assistant principals up to principals in our district. So in order for us to continue that trend, we wanted to really give the APs that we currently have an opportunity for growth outside the school building. We conducted surveys to all the APs and principals just to determine the topics that we were going to cover during this. The participants and the topics that we have covered thus far. 21 total assistant principals have participated. There's a session going on currently right now. So when we finish this board meeting, I'll be heading out that way to help support. The topics that were selected based on the survey were budget and finance, school culture, leadership structures, including instructional leadership, human capital, legal aspects, and micro-political aspects of leadership. So these were basically broken down into the 7 standards for school executives. So if you're not familiar with this rubric, this is how our principals are evaluated. Just like our teachers, they have a rubric that we go through. And each one of those is broken down. So we have through the 6 sessions, we have all of those standards highlighted in the individual sections. These are some examples. I just pulled 3 that I felt were interesting enough to share. The objective of one of our sessions was to, what is the impact of school culture on learning, teacher retention, and community relations? Some of the activities that we've done with them include a panel discussion from colleagues across the state. So then, just to discuss the impact of culture. We went through an exercise called 5 Whys to help identify the root cause of an opportunity for growth pertaining to culture. Implications for culture on teaching and learning and the power of relationships. And that goes into school classrooms as well. That relationship between a teacher and his or her students is probably one of the biggest determining factors of success of that classroom, based on the research. Another one, managing school finance to have a positive impact on teaching and learning. Some of the topics that were covered there, I won't read them all to you, but zero-based budgeting was covered, school-based budget basics, allocations were also covered. And then the bottom bullet is something we'd have to do every day, make tough decisions with limited finances based on data. So it's an exercise that the APs went through to help determine with a limited financial budget what needs the attention the most. And that's something we do every day. And the last objective that we want to kind of give you an idea of what was some of the topics. Improving instructional core through data-driven. We invited Dr. Sawyer and her team in for this one. The instructional core, which we're still developing as we speak, the science stuff that you just heard about is part of that. The difference between managing and leading. And then leadership matters, what the research says about the importance of the principal in the leadership role. And that expands into instruction, teacher retention, culture, all those things. The principal is the hub of the school, and just the impact of that principal's leadership has on how the school runs. Brief impact, obviously, the impact of this will be seen later as some of our assistant principals matriculate into principal positions. But it has produced a community of assistant principals, and that was probably one of the biggest objectives we had moving into this. Every month we have what's called a general principals meeting, and the principals attend that. And we wanted to make sure, and our principals form cohort groups based on their grade span or sometimes feeder patterns. We wanted the APs to have that as well. Their PLCs are limited because there's typically 1 or 2 of them in the building, tops, and they're kind of on an island with their principal. So creating that culture and that community was important for us. Any questions about the AP Academy thus far? We do plan to continue this next year and to keep doing as much as we possibly can to help grow our leaders in the district.
This is Beth Burns. Are we, who's instructing this? Are you guys, is central office staff pretty much taking turns, or who is leading this?
Depends on the day and what the topic is. Like Lisa presented the day when we did finance and school budgeting. Mr. Taylor has presented. Sometimes we get outside individuals such as, we all know him, is Mike Bracey, who will do a couple of sessions as well that will consult with him and bring him in. It just depends on the day. Like today, he's there because we're here and it was scheduled that way. So he will step in, but it is a tag team approach. It's also good to bounce ideas off of others that have done this work before. I've done this work before in a previous district, and certainly as time changes, we need to make sure that we are updating our agendas and topics.
We've had several panels, one panel, I won't say several, where we've had current superintendents, retired superintendents, principals, directors, talk through what they experience with culture, virtually on those things. So we try to bring in as much real time as we can with other people as well. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Ken Smith. I have a question. How are you gauging success of this program that we've got set up?
Yeah, let me go back. How do you go back, Craig?
Left arrow.
Left arrow. So what we have surveys that have gone out to, it's kind of like an exit survey at the end of the day, where assistant principals are providing feedback based on what they've learned. We use that, like I said, the impact of this will be seen in the future, I think, more than anything else. But one of the products of this is today, this afternoon, the APs are working through another layer of grow your own leaders. So they're working through a concept that will bring to fruition a teacher to AP pathway. So that's the beginning stages of this. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Smith. There obviously are some things that, our assistant principals are learning day to day from their principals, and we're always looking to improve on that. So if you guys have any suggestions about future topics or things of that nature, we'd be glad to take them into consideration.
Is there any way the board could get a copy of any of previous agenda notes and what exactly is being studied? Sure. If there's any kind of material that we could look at to make any kind of positive impact?
Sure. I'd be glad to share the current agenda, the past agendas we've used, as well as today. I'll put those in a folder and share it with the entire board.
Also, how many questions?
Thank you.
Sure.
How many questions on that survey, Mr. Taylor?
I'd have to look back. I don't know. We had 2 surveys. One was, and this was sent to principals and APs, about what are the topics that you feel like are needed to be able to grow in your current position. And then the other one is just feedback about the sessions. All the feedback has been very positive in terms of, thank you for having us. Thank you for the panel. Thank you for letting us understand or helping us understand the finances better. Those are all things we work through together. I'll be glad to share anything you guys want to.
I'd like to look at some of those questions. Sure. If you don't mind.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, we've reached the end of the agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a second. Ms. Beth has made the motion. Mr. Springer has seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Smith, is that an aye? All right, the meeting is adjourned. We will be back at 11 for our next meeting, which will be closed session so that the public knows, but we will be opening in public and then switching to closed